Hi, welcome to Love Devotion. In this episode, I want to help you look at death in a different way. I will explain to you the importance of understanding why certain things happen and how your loved one can help you finish this journey that you are on. I will help you learn to live a healthier, more happier life that your loved one actually wants for you. Now, bottom line, grief sucks. Grief is definitely one of the hardest lessons our souls will have to go through while here in life. Unfortunately, almost everyone in this lifetime will have to experience losing a loved one. First off, I do know how you feel. I lost my 10-year-old son, Devin, and just recently, my 58-year-old brother, Dominic, and a number of other relatives. All loss is hard, but there is no harder loss than a parent losing a child. My heart breaks as I watch so many people just stop living from the shock of having to continue this journey when a piece of them has been taken from them. I want to help you with this. Yeah, there is the usual time heals, and sure it does, but my son Devin has shown me that beating yourself up is just defeating the purpose of being here. So I want to help you understand what my son has been teaching me for the past 14 years. I know I won't be a fan of all, but I am hoping those of you will at least try to have an open mind and hear me out. So, ready to learn? Please note, you may hear me say something like, your loved one went home. I call heaven home. Please feel free to take notes because in order for me to explain grief, I have to dive into why we exist, and this is a lot to take in. I welcome comments or emails because I know life is a very complex journey. I'm sure many of you have experienced people say, I can't imagine what you're going through. I'm so sorry for your loss. And you think, no, you can't. Now, why is this? Because they didn't experience it. Now, this is important. In order to evolve, we must experience different themes. The blueprint, so to speak, has been around for over 2,000 years. It's called astrology. There's also numerology or even palm reading. There are more blueprints out there, but these are some of the more well-known ones. All of these blueprints have been around to help navigate us through our journey. Now, I'm not going to get into teaching you about each of these in this episode, but I do recommend learning how each of these blueprints can help you on this journey. Let's begin with astrology. If you take the date and time of your birth, your chart will show you experiences you have chosen in this lifetime to learn. I guarantee if you have a chart printed up, you will notice every house you have planets in at the time of your birth, you have been dealing with each one of those houses in this lifetime. For example, if you had planets in your 5th house, it would explain why you have focused on creativity. Or planets in your 3rd house, you would have focused on communication. Now, numerology, again, uses your date of birth, will explain the life path you have chosen. This will show you the theme of situations you chose to come here to learn. Say in numerology, your birth date reduces down to number 1, and you wonder why you have always felt compelled to work for yourself. It's because 1s are leaders. And same goes for the lines on your hands. The story is right in front of you. Your lifeline on your palm could clearly show that you will have a change in career at a certain age. This reminds me of a song from the Eagles called Already Gone. One of the lyrics goes, "Just remember this, my girl, when you look up in the sky, you can see the stars and still not see the light." My point is, we have to experience everything in order to learn it. Okay, let's talk about why do we exist? Are we here to have babies and form a family? Or go to work and buy a house and collect material items, then die, never to exist again? No. We come here with other souls contracted into a life to evolve. This is called our divine plan, a contract, if you will. This contract cannot be broken. I'm sure you heard, it was written in the stars. I had to say that. But no, really, it was. Our plan was written before coming into life. I love reading quotes and placing them around the house to give me positive motivation to keep going. They relay messages over and over to us, but we're too busy rushing around trying to live. Okay, now let's talk about souls and how they come into life with other souls, like as your mother or brothers, sons, friends, co-workers, so on. They are all written into this divine plan with us. Some are here as catalysts for another person. Some are here to finish karmic debt. Now, how we exit also plays a part. Some souls in this plan don't have to be here as long as others, or they drop in very briefly to send a message and stay a very short time. Devin has shown me by accepting why, how, when your loved one had to leave can bring incredible new experiences into your life. Now, when I say had to leave, means the overall decision that was made either by them or counsel on the other side. What I'm saying is, no matter how your loved one passed, at that moment was a decision. For example, if your loved one passed from a disease, or was murdered, or due to an accident, or just old age, this all ties into that soul's plan to evolve. Now this is where there are exceptions, because of being off path or wrong place at wrong time. For instance, like a near-death experience where a loved one survives a situation where they should have died. Because it is not their time to return home yet, they had to return because they still have more to learn. Being in human form, we are very sensitive, and the thought of having such pain brought onto us just seems crazy. But it's true, unfortunately. The more traumatic the passing, the more that soul learns. Now this is a tough one. I understand it's hard for people to accept this, and by no means getting hurt for the sake of points per se will be acceptable. As this plan is written, what you wrote will play out one way or another. For example, near-death stories from people that have actually died and counsel in spirit told them it's not your time, you are going to have to go back into life. Every story I have read where someone died and lived to tell about it, they all said they didn't want to return to this place. Every one of us has forgotten this is not our true home. The same circumstances apply to people's choice of experiences they bring into life, like having a handicap, being born with Down syndrome, or experiencing an accident which causes them to become crippled in some way. Yes, this is all written in their plan to experience for the sake of learning. The harder the life experience, the more that soul evolves. That soul should be recognized for their courage to have wanted to experience this. I always pause when I hear people praise other people that have everything given to them. Now, I'm not talking about people that have worked hard and achieved something. I'm talking about people that seem to attract good luck without struggle. People find themselves thinking, wow, I wish I was them. No, you don't. Have you heard the saying, God only gives us what we can handle? Well, this is a young soul. There's nothing wrong with this. We all have to start there. But as for me, being an old soul, I cringe at the thought, because on a subconscious level, I am so over reincarnating. I would like to share an experience I had that I believe Jesus helped shed some light on for me. A couple days after Devin died, I was in his bed cussing out God like I had been from the day he left, when all of a sudden Jesus appeared in front of me. Time seemed to stop, and the feeling of bliss was all I felt. It was probably only a few seconds, but it felt more like minutes had gone by. He did not speak, he just stood there, with the crown of thorns on his head, then vanished. A few minutes went by as I tried to make sense of what just happened. Then I thought, why did you wear that stupid thing? Later on that day, I was doing something and heard sacrifice. That was my answer. We all must realize sacrifice is needed in some situations in order to learn, as Jesus came here to teach us. Then after dying, he returned to prove there is more to this human experience. As souls, we have free will, which ties us into how we get ourselves into situations we're not meant to be in. We have the choice of free will, but sometimes we don't listen in time and accidents happen. That is the case of near-death experiences where spirit has to intervene if it's too early for you to return home. Or I'm sure you heard or experienced stories of how two people were traveling and one got sick and couldn't get on that flight or in that car that day, and only one person ended up dying and went home. That's because the other person was not ready to leave yet. Everything happens for a reason. Of course, we're human with emotions, and it's hard to accept the sad stuff. The happy and good are way easier. But they are both equally important to this life experience. Now, there's cases where we have free will to take a path, but your soul directs you back onto your chosen path. For instance, have you ever felt an urge to do something, but doubted yourself and chose to go a different way, only to have wasted sometimes years, and in the long run, wound up back to this original idea? That is what you call your divine plan. You chose to take another path, having free will, but it wasn't meant to be. This is why it's very important to never follow in someone else's shoes for the sake of making money or for trying to have a life like theirs. We are all here to work on our own karma or life experiences, because in the end, only what's true to your calling will work out best for you. This is why I love to teach people to learn what their life purpose is. Your loved one knows and is at peace with what has happened, and they want to help you reach the same. Now, there's another type of intervention, like I just mentioned, of how people that survived a crazy accident and no one can figure out how. That was divine intervention. In some cases, an actual angel intervened. And by the way, angels have never incarnated into life. I hear people say, "My loved one is an angel now." It's a nice thought, because angels are so angelic and perfect, but this could never be. Angels only exist for helping our souls reach perfection. We can become spirit guides and so many other helpful teachers when we go home. I experienced this after my 10-year-old son Devin passed. I was at the bar with my husband, my sister, and my brother-in-law. I was standing on top of a bar stool, reaching for something like a fool, with my arms fully extended in the air when I lost my balance. I immediately felt two hands on my back, and I was lowered to the ground without even hitting my head. I never extended my arms out, like you would automatically do when falling, because I knew I was being held. Afterwards, I laid there for a while in shock of what just happened, when my family came running over thinking I was hurt due to falling, but actually I was in shock. Spirit intervened to prevent injury or worse. You see, bottom line, we are here to learn. In order to evolve and in order to learn, we must experience it. Now you would think, okay, to find knowledge. Well, yes, knowledge is helpful while here on Earth, especially since we are here in this dense realm. But when we go home, that is a place of all-knowing. What's most important while here is to learn from your emotions. Every experience causes an emotion, and we must learn from this. Here are some examples. You're doing great, and suddenly you lose everything. Or your boyfriend or girlfriend leaves you. Or a loved one passes away. Or even you see a person or animal in pain or danger. These are the moments that are most important. What now? Your action and overall lesson is what you are here to experience and learn from. When we go home and replay our life, God doesn't judge us. We are all a part of God, and we are all here to evolve higher to reach perfection. The saying, when we get to those gates, God will judge us, is not true. When we are back home, we want to perfect and are eager to do what we can without realizing Earth is a tough road. Medium Sylvia Brown said in one of her books, Earth is one of the hardest schools. So no matter how a loved one goes home, or no matter what age they go home, they are an eternal soul, and age is not a factor anymore, just like time does not exist at home. So if your loved one was a child when they passed, they have the option to be at whatever state of mind they want. Devin would come through and talk to me as a young boy, like the picture I have of him on my website, because that is the picture I like. But I knew he was just doing it for me. He was actually a few years older and bigger than that when he passed. If you are familiar with talking to mediums, you will notice your loved one will appear to the medium as you would recognize them, because their job now is to help you get through this experience. When your loved one returns home, they are helped by all their soul family and counseled to reach peace on what just happened. And your loved one is very aware of everything you have done and will do until you return home. Us souls still here are the ones left with our emotions. Our job is to come to peace with our loved one leaving. I like to think of life like this. We're in a movie with our loved one, and you are the main character, and they only have a small part in the movie. They play their part, and then they're out of the picture. It's the same with life. You will reunite with them. We are all eternal. I enjoy celebrating all my loved ones' birthdays and their home day. I celebrate the day they leave, in which I call home day. We celebrate both days for Jesus. Why not our loved ones? I get really excited for my loved ones knowing they are back home and happy. I actually feel more pain for my two boys that are still here with me, with worry and concern as they live on this journey. Never struggle with the way your loved one passed or who was to blame, because it's all for the higher good of learning. We are not the ones to judge. If there are souls that need to be accountable, that is what karma is for. That person will have to deal with it one way or another, or in one life or another. Even in some cases, we return to life with one another to work out what we did wrong to the other person. Devon's brother had wronged Devon in a past life, and they came into this life as brothers to work that out. Your loved ones are on the sidelines, so to speak, cheering you on. The worst thing you can do is give up. There is a lesson to be learned. Now you must figure out what this is. Once you find acceptance to what has happened, doors will open to your next lesson. Never give up was the words Devon immediately told me after passing. I hear people say, "I wish I could talk to my loved one." You can. Everyone can. First, you must work on inner peace as well as acceptance that your life has changed, and now so must you. Your loved one is no longer in physical form, so meditation is your new cell phone. Ask your loved one for help and then stop and take time to listen. And by all means, do your research of others in the world with near-death experience stories so they can share with you the experiences they have had. Or after a loss, their loved one contacted them. Go to the library or bookstore. Browse through the titles and ask your loved one to help you pick a book that will shed light. I guarantee a book will stand out. Never stop talking to your loved one. Learning to communicate with spirit is no different than learning piano per se. Practice makes perfect, because it's something you have to learn to trust. When you ask and hear advice, don't blow it off, as so often we do. Have you ever thought, which way should I go? And you hear, go right or left. That is your higher self, your spirit guide, or a loved one guiding you. The more you practice talking to them, the more you will be able to recognize exactly who you are talking to. I have struggled with this for over 14 years, trying to figure out how to relay a message to people on how to come to peace with death. Here, I know you have to experience something in order to learn it, right? And not everyone is immediately contacted by their loved one after them leaving. So how do I convince you to believe me if you don't experience it for yourself? My only advice to you is to learn to communicate with your loved ones, to believe for yourself. You can do this. That reminds me of another lyric in the song Already Gone by the Eagles. It goes, "So oftentimes it happens that we live our lives in chains and we never even know we have the key." My life purpose is to help you start transforming your experiences into knowledge of why you are here. Continuing on after a loved one leaves is extremely important. Please feel free to email me or comment with any questions. I encourage everyone to visit my website to learn more about me. And I would love for you to subscribe to my podcast, because my future episodes will go more in depth on what I have just shared. I believe giving is just as important as receiving. This is why I am partnering with Adopt-A-Pet. Donations are greatly appreciated. I know I could not live without my pets. Animals are so selfless, and when I see them being harmed and in need, it just cripples me. Please help if you can. I appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, blessings.